live now, Mayor McQueen.
We're live? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. And it's 4 o'clock here on our special meeting. And guys, you got to be quiet over there. We're in a live stream here. So my family's sort of talking in the background. So I apologize for that. So we're going to, so I'll call this special meeting to order here at 4 o'clock. And there is a published agenda that was on our website. And I do need there's an agenda there. And so I hope, take it, everybody has a chance to see that agenda. So I do need a mover and a seconder for the agenda that's here. So moved by Councillor Nielsen, second by Councillor Little, that the agenda that is in front of us today is what's to be discussed. And I think, as the clerk said, it's only to be discussed as the item that is on the special agenda. Any discussion on that agenda? Seeing none, all in favor then? That is carried. So with regards to that approved agenda, is there any declaration of pecuniary interest to the item that we're discussing today as a council meeting? Okay, seeing none. So as you're aware, on Friday evening, I called this meeting, special meeting today for today at 4 o'clock. I was following our procedure bylaw, and I made reference to 4.4 has to have 48 hours notice before we can have a special meeting. So I don't know, Deputy Mayor, are you able to do the math there? But from 11:54 on Friday, I think that's more than 48 hours till today. So I think we meet that part of the criteria with regards to our procedure bylaw, unless it's a special reason to call it outside of that 48 hours, which I felt it wasn't. So then the item to be discussed is listed there on the agenda, and I will just sort of give a little bit of a brief background to my reading. I think from our committee of the whole meeting on January 8th, I think it was the last budget meeting on the Friday, if I recall my memory. I think that was the last our last budget meeting, which is the minutes that were placed on the agenda for the night for tomorrow. And part of that, I did have. I know we did have an agenda review on the Wednesday. I think yourself and you, Deputy Mayor, and then I did have a call that on the Friday that there was an addition to the whole list of items with regards to the budget draft and all the items that have been sort of suggested to be approved up until I think January 8th. And I know we had discussion at that meeting whether we were going to have a further discussion, but it was decided that we would have a public open house, which is scheduled for later on today at 5 o'clock, and is what we had agreed with. I was raised through some of our councillors with regards to the concern about how it was on our agenda for tomorrow. Certainly on our procedure bylaw, it's, you know, what was followed was correct, and it was placed on our agenda for tomorrow for consideration. But there was concerns with regards to our public open house tonight, whether that was the proper thing in the sense of process, and so I don't think there was any there was definitely no you know, and I'll say this to the public as well, there was no purpose of having that happen. It just happened to happen because of our procedure bylaw that when we adjourn a particular committee of the whole, then it's placed on the upcoming council meeting, which it was. So the purpose of, again, following up on that is to sort of make sure that because we're having a public meeting tonight, that it's here for discussion, whether we wish to still leave it on our council meeting for tomorrow or put it forward to a future committee of the whole meeting, which I think maybe was what we sort of had intended before we were going to have the final discussion. But anyway, so I felt it was important that we did have this special council meeting today before we get to that tomorrow, just so everybody here of council has that opportunity to have that discussion, and certainly the ability here to move it over to another date for another committee of the whole to discuss the budget meeting. So I think I tried to explain it as best as I can as far as the reason for this meeting, and I'm going to open up the floor then for discussion, and I'll do that right now. So would anybody like to have any discussion on the point? So Deputy Mayor, go ahead. I recognize you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I can appreciate you bringing this forward. I can understand that there's some concern around, we're having the public input this evening, and right off the bat we're debating it tomorrow. I want to be very clear. I don't think I would be prepared to decide on the budget tomorrow morning, or afternoon, I guess. I wouldn't be prepared to vote on the budget tomorrow afternoon. But the reason, Your Worship, I would like for this item to remain on the agenda is that we can defer it tomorrow to a special council meeting, where we can then sort of make the changes to, for example, if there's certain items on the that were approved at the committee level, and a number of us have heard that we shouldn't be doing that. We can't go back into committee of the whole and say, well, we're not going to do that anymore. We're not recommending that to council unless we do a motion to reconsider, and that would be a bit more complicated because that would require a 2/3 majority. So I would rather the item remain on the agenda tomorrow, and then we can set the special council meeting to discuss what passes and what doesn't pass. We can make decisions around changing how items are funded on those recommendations. We can also bring forward other items that we've heard from the public, and we can discuss those items as well. And that we can't do that unless we look at the minutes tomorrow and say we're going to defer this item to a special council meeting, which is why I would like to see us leave it on the agenda tomorrow instead of not leaving it on tomorrow. And then the first instance for us to discuss it again would be February the 3rd, which is 2 weeks from then. Our neighboring municipalities are starting to pass their budgets. I believe Town of Blue Mountains is doing theirs it's sometime in February. I think it's the first or early second week of February. I can't remember the exact date. And so there is some pressure, I guess, that's starting to build up on us in order to pass this budget and to get those early bird rates with a lot of the contractors and so on. So that's my reason for urging council today to keep this item on tomorrow's agenda and deferring it tomorrow rather than voting today to remove it altogether. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. What other comments others like to speak to this item? Councillor Alwood.
Thank you, Your Worship. When we adjourned our last, the January 8th meeting, it said that any further amendments to recommendations made thus far be discussed at a future meeting. I'm not sure procedurally whether, say, even at the end of our meeting tonight, we could schedule that meeting. Because it would be a committee of the whole meeting, I assume. We're not going to get our budget deliberations finalized in a council session where you have a 20-minute time limit. So either the deferral or I'm not sure procedurally if we can schedule a meeting at the end of the public meeting tonight. A question for the clerk, perhaps.
So, okay, so hang on, just before is there a point of procedure here, Deputy Mayor? I just want to.
It is a point of procedure and perhaps even a point of clarity. Just as we're waiving the procedural bylaw on the minutes coming tomorrow, at the special council meeting, we can waive the procedural bylaw at that point to allow debate to go for longer than 20 minutes. And I would like for the clerk to clarify on this point. I don't believe we can go back to a committee of the whole and make changes to the recommendations that have already been passed at the committee of the whole level. And that's why I'm sort of pushing for the special meeting of council, because I'm confident that we can waive the procedural bylaw at that point to allow for more than 20 minutes. And we wouldn't be able to make changes without motions to reconsider at the committee level. Thank you, Your Worship.
So I'm going to go to the clerk here for a minute, but I guess it was my interpretation that our budget meetings were draft, and we had the ability to rework those because they were a draft form. And if we wanted to make changes, and I know I had indicated during that committee of the whole that I had some suggestions to make some changes. And I think the chair I had indicated that a few times, and the chair had indicated that as well. And then it was suggested that we were going to go, why not to maybe at this time take us at the 4.3 or 4.4, whatever we were at, to go back to the public to get some feedback, and then come back to the budget after that public process. But it was always in my mind that we could make changes to that draft budget, before we brought it to the council meeting. And if things were to be added or to removed, it's still in the draft form, and we're still at that committee of the whole level to have that conversation, not in the sense of being locked into a spot of having 2/3 now to take it off those draft minutes. I was, because I know that we haven't had that final conversation. Are we happy to what that level is? I know maybe some are, maybe some aren't, but I thought that was where, and I guess my thoughts were, if we do get a number of people speaking tonight at our public meeting, and 2 or 3 of them say, well, that's not right, is it going to take 2/3 to take it off those drafts for the minutes? That was why I sort of called the special meeting today, was because I guess, again, I thought the intent of that meeting was to go to the public and then go back to a committee of the whole and continue to just talk about those draft minutes, not to endorse them, or certainly I would say, Deputy Mayor, if they were endorsed at a council meeting, but as that council meeting, that we still have to endorse them as a council, each item, whether we still want it to, and that process is still in place. But I guess I'm going to go back to, I think we have the deputy clerk here, who's representing or looking after this meeting. So, you're still here? Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Madam Clerk. I maybe it was wrong at the beginning, that I thought maybe you had another appointment that you had to go to. But so I guess if you're part of this meeting, then, Madam Clerk, did you hear the question that was raised, and can you respond to that question from Councillor Alwyn?
Yes, Your Worship. I've been here the whole time. The Deputy Clerk will be taking on the public planning hearing next week. So
I caught my communications were off there. Sorry. I apologize.
That's okay. So I'm glad we're doing it this way. Not only is it more open and transparent, but it gives me the opportunity to provide a little bit more clarity than some of the questions that were being asked in the email exchange. So you cannot just take something out of the minutes. They are decided matters of that body. So while you were in committee of the whole, you are the body of committee of the whole, which is a committee that provides recommendations to council. So the minutes from the meeting that started November 30th and ended on January 8th are complete. Those are decided recommendations. We had the parking lot in there for council to bring back things and revisit. It was clear that meeting was ended. So that meeting completed. So those recommendations are decided recommendations of that body. In order to reconsider those decided recommendations, there is a motion to reconsider, which would be required, which requires a 2/3 vote to pass and must be made and can only be made by somebody who decided in the majority. So I think what's happening is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand that council, the members would like to make some changes, possibly depending on what happens from the public meeting tonight. And by having the minutes on the council, it by no way stops council from making those decisions. Tonight's meeting, it was also pretty clear that council requested a committee of the whole open session. That was said a few times, that it was a committee of the whole open session. So not only is it a committee of the whole meeting, but it also does provide the public that opportunity to speak. After the public has had the opportunity to speak, the committee, because you're not council, because it's a committee of the whole, the committee can discuss different things that they may want to change, may want to address, those kinds of things. However, if they wanted to make a recommendation different from what that was already passed, there would have to be that motion to reconsider. The differing point is, and I think Deputy Mayor Desai had mentioned it, is if you wanted to do that as council, these are not decided matters of council, because council as a body has not passed these motions. These are recommendations coming, and therefore council has the ability to make amendments to those recommendations just as if they were presented to them for the first time without going through that motion to reconsider. So there's a little bit of clarity there. So I would agree with the Deputy Mayor's assertion that the best course of action would not be to go to another committee of the whole, because chances are, if you found different ways to look at things, you probably didn't vote in the majority of it in the first time, which means you would not be able to bring forward that motion to reconsider, no matter how good of an idea that might be. However, if you go to refer those minutes and those ratification to a special council meeting, anybody can make a recommendation to change the recommendations from that committee of the whole. It's kind of a convoluted process, but it is a parliamentarian one that requires that the recommendations coming from differing bodies. And as committee of the whole, you are a different body than council. Did I muddy the waters too much?
No, I think I think we all understand what you're saying. Just before I go back to Councillor Allwood. So I guess then if there was changes to that budget, say that we were using more reserves, or we were going to pull money from here or do something here, that wouldn't be a motion to reconsider necessarily. It could be a new motion pulling more money out of something to try to lower that final number.
If the recommendation already references that it's to come from reserves or to come from those items that has come from, then it would be a motion to reconsider.
Okay, so but if it's a brand new motion, then a brand new motion could be considered.
If it's a brand new motion that doesn't change a motion that was already passed by the body, then it would be fine. However, if it's not a brand new motion, or if it does in any way change the recommendation that was approved by the body, it would be a motion to reconsider.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Allwood, do you want to follow up on that?
Thank you, Worship. So as the chair of that January the 8th meeting, I remember asking at the end, because the mayor had indicated he had a couple of ideas in the reconsideration end of things in the committee of the whole, as we were still in committee of the whole. And there was a discussion about perhaps we should pause and get the public input before we finalize those recommendations. So as chair, I was under the impression that we were closing down that January the 8th committee of the whole, but not unlike our other previous committees of the whole. I was mistaken in thinking that we were going to have a continuing budget deliberation discussion in a committee of the whole forum. And then when I saw the the adjournment recommendation, it says that further amendments to the recommendations made thus far be discussed at a future meeting. I sort of assumed that was a committee of the whole meeting, but procedurally I may have been in error. I guess I'm not sure, but the intent of myself as chair, and I believe what I was reading from our committee of the whole attendees, was that we wanted a chance to hear what the mayor had to say with his recommendations after we had some public input. So if that's where we wind up, then I'm happy. And procedurally, whatever we have to do to get there. But at this, I would hope that at the end of that process, we would have a recommendation to council that could be deliberated on within 20 minutes at a council meeting, and not have to go through the budget line by line. We would have effectively had consensus. and public input. I'm not sure if that changes things, but I'd be happy to hear comments.
So hang on, I'll go back to the clerk if there's any other clarity there that needs to be spoken to, Madam Clerk.
Certainly. So yes, the recommendations can definitely be discussed at a future committee of the whole meeting, but changes to those recommendations can't. The changes would occur at the council meeting. And just so we're also clear, once you ratify those recommendations at a council meeting, the budget still isn't passed. The bylaw has to be created based on the final recommendations of council and brought forward to another council meeting. So the meeting that's scheduled for 5 o'clock tonight, there can definitely be that discussion that was mentioned at a future COW meeting, or you can have another COW meeting just to discuss, but any changes would require that reconsideration should you wish to make any changes at committee of the whole versus during at council, or if you refer to that special council meeting.
Okay, anything else, Councillor Allwood?
No, Your Worship, I guess, if you're confident that you can get the issues that you're concerned about addressed at a future meeting, then, but I just wanted to explain my position as chair, what I thought was happening, and I may have been mistaken procedurally. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allwood, and thank you, Madam Clerk. I think now I have Councillor Allen and then Councillor Nielsen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My main concern with having it go to tomorrow's meeting was optics. I remember back 2010 to 14, when I started out as planning liaison, we used to have our public planning meetings at 5 o'clock on the day of a council meeting. So we would start our council meeting at 11 o'clock, do council, and then break, have our public planning meeting at 5 o'clock. And then when we were done we would carry on with our council meeting if it wasn't done. On that agenda, the same council agenda, was the bylaw for the files that we were dealing with at the planning public meeting. And I said, this doesn't look very good when we're having a planning meeting at 5 o'clock and at perhaps 6 o'clock, we're passing the bylaw. Even though we had the option of deferring it if we needed more information, but it just looked bad to the public that look on the agenda and see a planning meeting with public input and then the bylaw there half an hour or an hour later. So that was changed. It was, and the way it is now, it's at a future council meeting, which makes it not look like, but we do have the opportunity to get more information, to think about it, whatever, before we make a decision. So that was my main concern. Going back to the council meeting, I know we can defer it tomorrow, but people that are looking at the agenda see it on there and think, okay, it's a done deal. It's they're passing it. So why can't we have and we could set it up today, have a special council meeting, pick a date, and only discuss budget? Because we are not going to be able to, I know we won't do it in 20 minutes, but even if we waive the procedural bylaw to allow us to speak for more than 20 minutes or discuss for more than 20 minutes, we could be 3 or 4 hours, who knows? So I won't make a motion at this point, but I'm suggesting that we take it off tomorrow's meeting agenda and set a special council meeting to deal with budget only. And then we don't have to have reconsideration motions. We can just, anybody can make whatever recommendations they want, and then it gets voted on and then go to another council meeting to be passed. That would be my suggestion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you. And just for clarity to the clerk, before I go on to other members, Madam Clerk, so if there was a special council meeting, it would be basically taking the items that's on tomorrow's agenda to its own council meeting. Is that correct? Or could
Yes.
be. And
Yes.
then so if that was its own special council meeting, only dealing with the recommendations that came, or any other comments, I guess it could come from a budget, would be then. But once that was dealt with at that special council meeting, then basically wherever that dust settled, then it would come back to the next council meeting as a bylaw if it was moved forward to that point. Is that correct? Or would it still have to come back to another council meeting to be considered to those minutes before then it would go to a bylaw?
No, Your Worship. So special council meeting, your council. So you're making your decisions. Anything that happens at the special council meeting is already ratified by council because council made those decisions. The next one
Right.
would be the bylaw. Should the request be to remove those items from the council agenda for tomorrow, there would have to be a motion to suspend section 22.4 of the procedure bylaw, which is the reason that those minutes and ratification is on that agenda, which does require a 2/3 vote if a resolution is to come forward at this meeting.
Okay, thank you for that clarity, very much so. So I have Councillor Nielsen, Councillor Valiquette, and then Councillor Little. Okay, sorry, Councillor Allen, do you have any follow-up to that clarity? I just want to make sure that you're clear, so as we go through, everybody has that opportunity.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Councillor Nielsen, Councillor Valiquette, and Councillor Little. So go ahead, Councillor Nielsen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Most of my questions just got answered quickly, which was, moving the item to the special committee of council or special council meeting. Seems to be the consensus among a few members of council that it'll allow us to have the appropriate discussion without, my apologies, without being outside of our procedural bylaw. I think just one quick question of clarity from the clerk was that we would be able to suspend the procedural bylaw to allow us to have a longer discussion than the 20 minutes at that special council meeting. But other than that, that is the direction I'm hoping we take. Whether we do that today, whether it gets done tomorrow when the item's there, getting it put to a special council meeting where we have a little bit more time for contemplation after the public meeting tonight, and the ability to be open and transparent then.
Okay, thank you for that. Next is Councillor Valiquette. You have you have a point of clarity there, a point of order, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I just want to go through everybody's chance.
Not at all. I just you'd gone through the line earlier and you hadn't mentioned me at the end, so I was just putting my hand up to go at the end. Sorry.
Okay, sir, you'll be after Councillor Little then. Sorry about that. Okay, Councillor Valiquette, you have the floor.
Thank you, and I can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. So I apologize if I am asking questions that have been asked before. So I understand the optics part of it and the inclination to change this. My concern is about if this is the procedure, how will people who look at this from a procedural perspective, I'm thinking obviously real policy wonks as well as the press, who expect, I don't expect the majority of the public follows our procedural bylaws, we barely do, but how are we going to deal with the people that expect us to do this correctly I understand that this has happened from a timing perspective. I get that. And so I guess my next question to that would be, when people get used to having this special meeting in which we are allowed to make changes, is this something that we would do next year? Because I'm not entirely sure that, that's something that we're looking to do from a long-term perspective. So yeah, so I guess those are my concerns with changing the date.
So just to clarify, Councillor Valiquette, so you do appreciate the optics in the sense of having a public meeting and then having it on the agenda the next day you mentioned something about that, right?
I do,
Yeah.
sir. And there's 7
Yeah.
days a week, which means that there's a 1 in 7 chance of it following on that day. I think that is just the way things are. And I think that we are in danger of changing and moving away from something and just creating more confusion.
Well, certainly we have an opportunity to review our procedure bylaw, and we can always make changes to our procedure bylaw because technically it's our procedure bylaw. Those are the rules that we follow by, and we can set our own rules of how we feel, so those are the rules that are currently in place. And certainly I will say that a number of us were a little, I know myself was a little surprised of the process and how it came back on the agenda. So again, this is also a learning opportunity for us too. And I would think that objectively, this is a positive thing in the sense of talking through this. It's not a bad thing. At least I would suggest it would be a reflection of being careful and how we move forward in the sense of our public meetings and our decision process. So I don't know if you want any clarity from the clerk there, Councillor Valaket, or do you have any clarity from that
Well,
part?
I do have a question. Are you chairing this meeting, sir?
Yes.
Okay, I do feel like your opinion on this one is out there, and I'm not certain what our procedural bylaws say about a special committee. Special meeting.
It does speak to the part about a special meeting, and it has 48 hours of notice, which I did follow through on. And there's 2 ways I can call a special meeting, or I can be petitioned by a majority of council. Is that what you mean? I'm not sure.
No, I mean that you are clearly, as the chair of this meeting, showing your preference on the item.
Well, I am the mayor, and I am calling this special meeting, so I guess I am chairing this meeting.
And my question, and my question is procedurally, are you allowed to have this vocal of an opinion?
Well, part of my job as the mayor is to make sure our council is versed with information, and I was referring to our procedure bylaw, to the process that is laid out in our procedure bylaw. And certainly this is part of us coming forward today in this special council meeting to make sure we're all clear, and also the optics of where we are, and we can change this on tomorrow's agenda if we feel that the optics aren't. So I was taking the opinion from other council members, and I decided to call a special meeting as I have that right as the mayor.
I'm not sure you understood my point. So
I don't think so.
Let's move along. No.
So moving on then to Councillor Little, then, if you have any have questions or comments?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just first of all have a question for the clerk. If at tomorrow's council meeting, when this item comes up, council decides to refer it to a special council meeting, does that require 2/3 majority?
Madam Clerk?
No, a motion to defer to another meeting does not require 2/3.
So I don't really see the issue here. If we leave this, just have the agenda as presented, when the item comes up, we as a council decide to hold a special council meeting to discuss the budget. That way we're following procedure. If there are people who are, like personally, I don't think optics should be the prime motivator. This is our bylaw, this is our procedure. I think we should follow procedure and do our best out in the community to explain that to the community members. So it's not the prime motivator, but I don't know that anybody could take issue with the fact that it's following procedure, it's on the agenda. We want more time to consider, and that we make a decision at tomorrow's council meeting to move it to a special council meeting for a fulsome discussion. We're following procedure. And we're taking our due time with this. And if people are still questioning why it came on the agenda immediately, then that's our job to explain that. So for me, it looks like a very easy solution, and it's within our prerogative to do that. And you know, I'm supportive of the opinions around the table. I can understand. I think we perhaps agree on wanting to be able to have the opportunity to have more discussion, not have to vote to reconsider things. But by doing this, we are able to meet all those, all those aspirations. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. I will make a statement at the end, but I'll move on now to the Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Little.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. Like Councillor Little, I also feel that optics shouldn't be the prime motivator here. For what it's worth, people have already seen the agenda. It's been publicly, published already for the public to view as of Friday evening. So I don't know if optics is really a strong argument. The way it's looking, we're very likely that come tomorrow we will be deferring to a special council meeting. So I can't accept the argument of the optics are bad as a strong argument. Our job is as much about communicating as it is about the optics of it. And I know firsthand, people have said things on social media that I've responded to, and people are reasonable when you provide a proper response as to why something's going on to the agenda at a given time. My question to the clerk, Your Worship, would be in order to defer a set of committee of the whole minutes to a special council, would we have to have a meeting where we do that, where we physically do that in terms of process, or how would that happen? Because if we have to physically defer a set of or defer the items from that committee of the whole to a special council meeting through motion, then we have to do it at a council meeting tomorrow or February the 3rd, which is the next council meeting. So if I could get clarity on that, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Madam Clerk, do you understand the question or?
Yes, Your Worship. So just like any other motion or item that is deferred to a future meeting, it is just a motion to defer. It has to be done. It has to be done at the meeting where the item is there, because then the item is put on the floor, then it's deferred. It can be done at tomorrow's meeting, no problem, and then it's just deferred to the future meeting, and you dictate the time of holding that special council meeting in order for the deferral to go to.
Any follow-up there, Deputy Mayor? Or? Okay. Are there any other comments? I guess I'm going to wind this back into the sense of the role of myself as the mayor. Of all the years I've been on council, this year's budget has been a very sensitive item. And for those reasons, we are in a state of emergency this year, and we are affected by what they call COVID-19, and we're in our second lockdown. I will say this, that as your head of council, part of my job is to communicate to my council and also give leadership and guidance to my council. And that's one of the reasons I brought this forward. It was brought to my attention that this was a very sensitive item. It was a very sensitive item that was within the shortness of the public meeting that we had called. I also felt there was concern about when this public meeting was called. I don't think there was full intention or understanding of it going directly to a council meeting, and we've clarified that. So that's why I was saying that this is not a bad thing in the sense of having that. It's added clarity, and it adds clarity to our process, and also for the public watching, that adds clarity. And in the sense of the discussion that we have had here this afternoon, certainly now that those are coming into our public meeting this evening, we'll have a better understanding that council is sensitive to this if it is raised, or it has issues about the shortness of the time. That was certainly raised to my attention by other council members as well. And again, part of my role as your mayor is to also listen to my council, and also feel that if there's items of clarity or issues of needed to have a special meeting, we can't speak. And I think this was in the email that came from the clerk, that the only direction that can happen is us as a council. And so this is why another reason I called a special meeting is to have that discussion as a whole, as a body, as we are as a council. So it's maybe there's some thoughts in the sense of maybe why this meeting was canceled, but I used my judgment to call this special meeting with my feeling that it was worth having this opportunity to at least to be better informed, and also to have the ability for the public to follow along and see where our sensitivity and where we are with regards to the item that was placed on our agenda for tomorrow. And I think with regards to some of the understanding of some of the councillors of process. I don't know if there's any other okay, go ahead, Councillor Allwood.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, you know, when the treasurer laid out the original budget timeline, there was provision for a public meeting and time for council consideration. So the process was, that was our goal at the onset. Our budget deliberations in committee of the whole have taken a long time. And, you know, I want to take responsibility for the situation that we're in today, because my understanding was at the end of that last January the 8th meeting that we were pausing the committee of the whole to get public input before the mayor came forward with some suggestions and any other reconsiderations. So procedurally, I made an error. I would have never adjourned that meeting if I'd have been aware of some of the details in our procedural bylaw. I would have paused it the way we had paused other committee of the whole meetings and had the public meeting and gone back into committee of the whole. So I apologize for that, but I see that we have a way out of it, and it's made it a little more complicated, and I've learned something. So thank you.
Okay, other comments? So basically, as sort of is the motion that's for consideration on this agenda is laid out by the clerk, is if we wish to set up a future council meeting to discuss the budget, and what I don't clear, I guess those minutes could also go to that special council meeting itself. If that is the case, it will take 2/3 majority to make that happen, as it's been laid out the clerk. If that doesn't happen, and I mean, there's a reasons why we called this special. I called this special meeting, but I mean, we can adjourn and take the information that we had. There's no really motion on the floor. It's a suggested reason why we're here today, and only this specific particular reason is why we're discussing this. Or the other option has been suggested that it goes to, at least it's communicated here. So those are watching, that when we go into our public meeting, that when we attend our council meeting tomorrow, we do have the options, which I think has sort of been discussed here and felt that might be the right move to do, is either as to defer that item on the agenda to a future council meeting. So I think that's sort of the options that are here. Madam Clerk, do I have any other? I see the deputy mayor is. I just want to get clarity from the clerk as far as options for council, just so as we move forward, everybody knows. Madam Clerk.
You hit the nail on the head, Your Worship. So
Okay,
if something wants to happen here, you'd require 2/3 to suspend the procedure bylaw to remove the item from tomorrow's agenda, contrary to section 22.4, or you can just go forward with tomorrow's agenda and defer the item to a future council meeting, which is just a regular motion.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So I'm going to go back to the deputy mayor for, you had further comments. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. We've brought up, that when the treasurer presented the original timeline, I don't think we can really refer back to that timeline, because according to that timeline, we were going to receive the budget on November the 4th, have a public meeting on the 15th. So as soon as we sent the budget back on November the 4th, we lost any claim to that particular timeline. We've spent upwards of 30 hours in budget deliberations, as per my calculations. And it's been, in my memory, the most vigorous budget deliberations that I've been part of. So, having said that, I mean, I don't think Councillor Allwood made any grave error when as chair he allowed the motion to adjourn at the last committee of the whole. There's items that I still want to bring forward as well. I know that there's a separate avenue where that can happen. So I don't think he's made any grave errors, and I don't think allowing it to adjourn was an error either. Because if I'm not mistaken, we had to adjourn that committee of the whole in order to take the recommendations from that to the public, if my understanding of procedure is correct. So I think the solution is there. The public understands that we're taking this job of ours very seriously. They understand that we're most likely not going to be making the decision tomorrow. So I think we follow our process. We go to the meeting tomorrow, and at that point we defer to a special meeting of council, I think. Thank you, Mayor McQueen.
Okay, thank you. So basically, I mean, there is no agenda, or there is no motion on the floor. And if none, we do have a public meeting here at 5 o'clock. So basically, if there is no motion on the floor, I can move to adjourn and then go forward. Or is there an indication of a motion which council wishes to make? Councillor Allen.
I'll make a motion. Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Do I have a seconder then? Councillor Deputy Mayor. All right. So all in favor then? Okay, that is carried. So thank you everybody for attending, and certainly we will see you, Councillor Allwood, in 10 minutes or less. Thanks everyone. Thanks staff.
See you guys in a bit.
Okay, bye now.